Historic Watkins Glen International welcomes GT America powered by AWS as the season reaches its midway point. George KURTZ leads the SRO 3 standings over Jason Daskalos by just 23 points after 6 races, while the GT4 class is even tighter, with reigning champion Jason Bell leading series rookie Moise Uretsky by just a single point. Hello everyone, welcome to the Finger Lakes region in upstate New York. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick will be patrolling the pit lane. It's about time to go for the first of 2 GT America powered by AWS races of the weekend. And Calvin, this is pure sprint racing, single driver, single car, 2 classes. 40 minutes, though. That's all you've got to settle this one.
It's been fun. What a season we've seen so far, and George KURTZ is certainly hitting his stride. Scored a sweep of the weekend just a few weeks ago at VIR. He now leads the championship with 3 victories on the year by just 23 points, however, over Jason Daskalos, who started the year so well with the win at St. Pete and Sonoma. On the back foot a little bit here this weekend. They've been tweaking on the Audi of Jason Daskalos, and they're trying to get that into its sweet spot once again.
But it was a big pole lap for George KURTZ in qualifying this morning, sitting on pole by over 1 second over the next closest man. That was Jason Harward, Jeff Burton, Justin Weatherer, Mirko Schultes, Jason Daskalos, the top 6. So Daskalos does have some work to do if he's going to get up there with that CrowdStrike Mercedes that he's chasing, not just in this race, but also the championship.
Yeah, as you said, KURTZ had a significant margin, but behind him it's just covered by a few tenths. There's going to be a fierce battle. If George can get out front and lay it down, he may be uncatchable here today, but big battle for those other podium spots.
And in GT4, the other class on the grid here this weekend, it's Marko Radisik on pole. That's good for him. He had a great start to the season on the streets of St. Petersburg, but it has been barren since then.
It has, but you know when Marko's on form, he's sometimes unbeatable, and to see that BMW back at the front is certainly great. Conversely, we see Jason Bell in the GMG Racing Aston Martin way back in 12th position in class, so a lot of work to do for our championship leader.
Definitely a disappointment there. The good news is his closest pursuer in the championship, Moise Uretsky, he qualified 6th. That is better, but it's not great. Keep in mind, points are paid first down to 10th in class in this championship, but it does look like, according to that graphic, perhaps a change. I saw Radisik down the order. Perhaps he's been moved to the back. We did not receive word of that, but if we get information, we'll be sure to pass it along. Nevertheless, we'll keep an eye on those developing stories, but it's about time for the first of 2 starts. It's a split start in this championship. SRO 3, effectively a GT3 class, but with some older spec GT3 machinery mixed in. They will be the first to take the green, and the pole sitter George KURTZ on the left-hand side of the screen will lead the field. He gets the jump, but Harward stays right there on his flank. KURTZ just able to clear him. Will he move to the outside, or will he guard that inside line? Yes, he will, and Harward has to settle in line behind him.
He does. It looked like Daskalos got a pretty good jump, but couldn't do anything with it. Had to funnel back in by the time they got into the apex of turn 1.
At the front, Seth Lucas, new in this championship. He inherits the pole.
Wetherell's out already.
Yeah, that's Justin Wetherell. Damage on the right front of that Triarci Competizione Ferrari, but Lucas inherits the pole. There's a lot of debris on the track for the GT4 field to get through, and it looks like a few of those cars might have run through that debris field, so we'll have to keep an eye and see how that affects the tires.
Yeah, it should have been smargy-bargy, I assume, between some of those SRO 3 runners at the start there, and suddenly the GT4 runners had to deal with it when they came through after their start. The back of the pack there is Marko Radisik trying to cut some moves. Fastest car, now see Gray Newell there taking the escape road. This will not, he doesn't have to stop now. He's done that, so that's the mandatory penalty for taking that shortcut there, but certainly a lot of work to do. He qualified quite well inside the top 10.
He was racing with Elias Sabo up towards the front of the field, going into the inner loop there, but has to go through the shortcut. The tire bundles are there to slow you down, and Mirko Schultes is off as well with significant damage to the left front of that Callaway Corvette.
Well, I wonder if that's who got together with Wetherell, with the damage to Wetherell's Ferrari in turn 1. We kind of switched our attention to the start for GT4 as they were trying to make their way through to turn 2. Well,
that's definitely the way it's looking. It was a great start for George KURTZ, who has the advantage over Jason Harward. Jeff Burton, the 191 right behind. He had a crash in qualifying this morning for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. And the anticipation is they're going to use this chassis that he's racing here in GT America in both series now this weekend, which is not what they would prefer to do.
Yeah, and that may curb his aggression a little bit in the race here today, knowing that he's got to use that chassis a little bit later this afternoon. Good battle here with Radicic continuing to cut his way through this field.
Not sure why the provisional pole sitter had to start at the back, but he's already made some good progress up through the field right now, working on Sean Waywood. But the Aston does have some good straight line speed. He can't pull alongside. Finally does in the braking zone. Bray Newell looking to recover. He's taking a peek to the outside of Waywood. That's the blue Aston Martin running in the middle of the picture.
Still got to be careful. That debris is still there on the exit of turn 1. Meanwhile, we see Daskalo starting to put the pressure on Burton for that third position right now. This is down into the boot section, the laces of the boot, coming up into the toe, uphill climb here into the brake zone.
Damage at the front of Daskalo's car too, so maybe he was involved in the issue that appears to have affected a pair of other cars as well, with Weatherall and Schultes.
KURTZ fastest lap of the race so far at 53.3, inching away from Howard. Howard's hanging tough there. Good battle here with Burton. Hasn't had a win yet this year, and we're talking about him being a little bit more circumspect, you'd think, in the race here today, knowing that car's got to pull double duty. Love this piece of the racetrack here. So quick through here. This is turn 10. Fast change of direction. Look how quick these cars transition back across to the left side of the road to set up and radius through this final corner, using all of the road there. Maybe a bit of aero wash there, particularly with the damage to the front end of that Audi.
How will that damage on the front of the Audi affect Jason Daskalos behind the wheel?
I think certainly it'll affect the downforce. You can see him there missing his apex, maybe missing his braking a little bit. So downforce not only affects the corners, also the braking. And then you got the drag effect as well as you climb up through the S's here and down the long stretch to the chicane.
Well, in some respects, it was a good opening lap for Daskalos as he went up a couple of positions with the misfortune for others. We've got a waving yellow approaching the inner loop here. That's just ahead of our leader, George KURTZ. And that's for the Schultes car, which is off track. It's a much different spot on the track, perhaps, though he did limp the car that far before pulling off.
Yeah, now he's kind of in the firing zone, so to speak, there, so it's not a good track position. The stewards will be looking at that and trying to get communication with the driver to see if he can indeed move the car back out of harm's way.
4.5 minutes into this one, and George KURTZ continues to lead overall. Earlier today, our Amanda Busick caught up with him.
With 3 wins on the season, George KURTZ is the points leader in GT America and will be on the pole here for this next race here at Watkins Glen. You swept Virginia, you come in here, energy is on your side. What do you love about Watkins Glen?
Well, it's a historic track, and you think about how many Formula One races have been run here in the past, so it's really cool. Since they actually repaved it, it's been a high grip track, so it's fun in a GT3 car in the Mercedes, and I think it's just a special place.
You picked up the first win ever in this class. As you see the GT America series evolve and develop, what's been the highlight for you?
I think it's a great class. You got a lot of folks that are getting into GT3. You got folks who have been in GT3, and obviously GT4 is in there as well. And I think the mixed racing adds an additional element to it. You really have to understand how to pick through traffic and not lose a bunch of time, you know, as you lap those cars.
Well, we're about headed for race number 1 here in Watkins Glen. What will be the key in getting another win for yourself?
I think the key will just be a good start, get the tires warmed up and really prepped and ready to go. We don't have tire warmers in this versus World Challenge, so it's really important to have the right tire pressures, get them up to pressure early, and not overshoot at the end of the race where you might be struggling. So that's what we're working on, and hopefully we'll have a great race.
Good luck.
While we were talking to George there, full course yellow, safety car has been deployed. George, though, was talking about the crucial aspect of preparing the tires for the initial start. He did that, was able to pull away a little bit there after the drop of the green. He's going to need to do it again with this restart upcoming.
Yeah, but he seems to have the edge in performance. We've seen it this weekend. Here's another look at that start. You can see the contact there between the Ferrari and the Callaway Corvette, and Dascolo's car is already damaged, it looks like.
Yeah, so something started even before that came into our picture for the Audi to pick up that damage.
Well, I mentioned that Dascolo's had a really good start. He had nowhere to go with it. He's kind of stymied just the way that the car's laid out in front of him before they got to the brake zone for turn 1. So maybe he got a little bit antsy as they were going through the apex there and got into the back of one of the cars, maybe the Callaway, and that turned him into the Ferrari.
Well, evidently some electrical issues have been plaguing the Triarci Ferrari over the course of the weekend, and perhaps there was an issue there at the start. It didn't accelerate the way everyone anticipated. That could have led to contact, but that's speculation just based off what we know of how the weekend has gone so far. That headlight is hanging on by the wires that connect it effectively. Wonder what race control will think about that. That could potentially come loose and be a safety issue.
Yes, for sure, and you just got to think about the safety of the cars and running over that, cutting down a tire or getting underneath the splitter or something. So we'll be taking a look at it and making the best judgment call.
Well, it's a bummer to have the race slowed behind the safety car. These are short races. You don't get a lot of time, and for someone like Marco Radicic in particular, this costs him a chance to move forward. Now, the good news is the gap comes down behind the safety car. He's done a nice job of recovering. He's already up into 10th in GT4. Gray Newell right behind him in 11th. So both of those are going to be cars to keep an eye on. But how about Jason Bell? We talked about his struggles in qualifying. He started 12th in class. He's up to 6th, and he's right behind his championship rival, Moise Uretsky.
Yeah, they're only separated by 1 point in the standings right now, and he sits right behind him. So he's had a great start. Probably just didn't get a clear lap in qualifying. And that's sort of like the improvement we're seeing with Jason over the last few seasons. Defending class champion, of course. Big championship win last year. And he's just got that poise. He doesn't panic. Obviously not the qualifying session he was looking for, but done a really solid job here in the opening laps.
About to go green once again. It was a short safety car intervention. George KURTZ backs that field up. Now he steps on it in the acceleration zone, coming out of turn 11 onto the front straightaway. George KURTZ has made good his escape. Now it's the two Zelus Lamborghinis that are left to fight it out with Jason Dascolo's right behind it. That headlight may have come off.
Yeah, I see some debris there flying on the front straightaway, which I believe came from Dascolo's Audi. There it is. Just see some of the GT4 cars passing it halfway down the front stretch. Lots of nice dicing going on here. Elias Sabo trying to hang on to that position.
He's been in a nice run of form lately, not just here in GT America, but in Pirelli GT4 America as well. Coming under pressure, though, from Moise Uretsky, who's got Jason Bell right behind him. 3 Astons line astern.
Yeah, Sabo's, I think he's really just getting a lot more confidence. Spoke to his engineer and team manager for the Flying Lizard Motorsport Group, Stephen Costello, said Elias just doing a great job. Andy Lee qualified very well in Sprint X competition here this weekend as well. So they're really finding their feet, finding the setup and giving Elias the confidence that he's looking for. But he was very wide there, super committed there, down through the outer loop, down the carousel turn, heading down the chute.
Track, so many challenges, high speed, high commitments in certain areas, and George alluded to it in his interview. So much history at this place. You look at the series that have run here, the names that have raced and won here. This is about as good as it gets in North American racing.
Well, it's certainly iconic for a number of reasons. Certainly the history with the Grand Prix being here for over a decade, and certainly the great sports car races that we've seen here over the years. But just driving the circuit, Ryan, is something else. And since they did the resurfacing a few years ago, the grip level that it gives these Pirelli tires and the cars to work with is just immense. So it takes a lot of commitment to fly through some of these corners.
Started to tell the story of this young man, our leader in GT4, Seth Lucas, who started the season in Pirelli GT4 America. This is the Hattori Motorsports team. Shiggy Hattori, open wheel racing fans will recognize the name, multi-time Indy 500 starter. He's been running a team with Toyota in the NASCAR Truck Series, a little bit in the Xfinity Series, branching out into sports car racing. They had that big crash, you'll remember, at VIR. Change of position here. This is big for championship implications with Bell getting around Uretsky, but quickly to finish the story on Lucas. Remember, they had the crash with Matt Plum at VIR and suffered some significant damage there. Ultimately, though, elected to make the switch to GT America in order to help jumpstart the development for young Seth Lucas, who just needs seat time at this stage in his career.
Yeah, and Seth's family have had a history in sports car racing over the years, so it's great to see him develop, and under the tutelage of Matt Plum as well. And as you said, recovering from a big hit for Matt at VIR. That was a monster hit that he suffered there, a lot of chassis damage as well.
Now, great that the outcome was as good as it was. That car did everything it was supposed to do from a safety perspective. That was a scary, scary impact there at VIR. And now Plum's still very much involved on the coaching side, helping out Seth Lucas, who's doing a great job at the front of this field.
Sabo, he's just taken off from that little pack there and has really chased down Adelson now for P3 in class, having a great run this afternoon.
We talked about it. Elias has been strong in both Pirelli GT4 America as well as here. Did win a race last year in GT America on the streets of Nashville, where we'll be heading next. But this season, he's finished a 5th, so this is shaping up to be a really good run, and he's putting pressure here on Adam Adelson, who has been one of the breakout stars of the season.
He really has a victory already to his name, and also a Sprint X victory with Elliott Skier at NOLA. So he's another one of these riders that's just gaining confidence as this season is developing.
There are a lot of drivers in contention for the championship. It's in GT4 specifically, and Adelson is one of them. He's 5th right now, but only 40 points back, 25 points for a race win, so 50 points on offer over the course of these doubleheader weekends. And he has been stout all season long.
He was sort of draft this Aston Martin could pull off this Cayman here up the back straightaway. Normally aspirated, Porsche struggles a little bit in the heat of the summer. Small engine. Pretty even though, there's not a big advantage gained there, even with the Aston Martin running in the draft and the slipstream of the Porsche in front of him.
Adelson keeping that Flying Lizard Motorsports Aston at bay for the moment. But it's nip and tuck between these two, and Sabo is heaping on the pressure.
And both Adelson, Sabo, and Jason Bell, for that matter, ran almost identical lap times on the previous lap, so nothing between these three cars. Lucas continues to lead in GT4 from Ross CHOUEST, who's having another very strong run. The Toyota Supra has been such a dynamic package since it appeared in GT4 recently. Been knocking on the doors, and it's been very strong here this weekend in a number of hands. And here we see Marco Radisek looking down to the inside of Uretsky.
That's going to be big for the points.
Yeah.
Uretsky 2nd in points, goes around after the touch. Oh, that was close. That's a dangerous place to be. The field splits the Aston Martin, and Uretsky needs to get that thing refired and rejoin safely.
Yeah, still should be looking at that one. It's just the lightest of touch, but right at that pivotal moment in the middle of the corner just turns him. With the hot tires, it's just hard to spin that around. Let's take another look at it. Marco down to the inside. Committed, and then he just washes up a little bit and gets into him. I think that may get the call, unfortunately, for Marco there.
Was the fight for 7th. Good hustle from Amanda. She did get the update on what put Radisek at the back of the field. Evidently, it was a weight issue, just a few kilos underweight after qualifying, so he was forced to start from the back after qualifying on pole. Probably driving through a little bit of that red mist, and unfortunately, the contact there, likely to draw the ire of the stewarding room.
That's frustrating. It's so hard to have the fastest car for a weekend and be performing like he was, to lose that from qualifying with the car being a little bit underweight and managing your expectations moving forward. He got the break with the reset with the caution, and then just got a little bit too aggressive there down into turn 8.
It's the team of Seth Lucas, the Powell, Ohio native, who again started this season in Pirelli GT4 America. Did do a little bit of Trans Am racing last year, but is still very new to this, and has proven to be a quick study, as has this team. This is a first foray for them into GT racing, and they've been strong.
Yeah, it's been knocking on the door, right? Shown promise as when is it going to break through and get those wins in this form of competition. Had a great year last year in Sprint X competition with Kevin Conway and Jez Bray winning the AM class there. And showing well again this year, of course, in the silver category.
Coming up on the halfway mark in this race, George KURTZ, by the way, continues to lead overall over Jason Harward and has been building that advantage, although that gap has suddenly come down. It was 2.5 seconds at the line, and visually it is not now. So something has happened on this lap to George, and that's brought Jason right back into the mix.
Oh, big time. Not sure if he caught traffic there down in the turn 1 area, but nonetheless, George KURTZ is suddenly under big pressure from Jason Harward.
Harward's still very new to this game, just his second season of pro racing, all in GT3 cars, but it's been a quick study, and the SRO Motorsports team, maybe quick learners too as they make the jump.
Yeah, Jason's got a forceful personality. He's not going to be intimidated here by George KURTZ and the championship leader. He's going to go after him, I think, if he has the opportunity. George seems to be settling back down again, so I'm not sure he had a big moment or something, or whether it was traffic, but the car seems to be healthy. He's running at pace once again.
Yeah, I'm really curious what happened. We do have a full course yellow on the track. That's going to reset things once again.
Colin Brown on the back of the pit box there, watching his teammate, who will be competing with a little bit later this afternoon in Fanatec GT.
Amanda with a note that the Riley Motorsports team has told George KURTZ to conserve those tires. Need to make them last 40 minutes in this race. This full course yellow will help from a tire conservation perspective. Still not sure what brought this full course yellow out. Well, now we do, at least in part. Someone got into the tire bundle.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was 2 cars tangling or whether just someone dropped a wheel. That curbing their track limits, you're trying to keep it so you don't go too far over there, otherwise they will ding you or give you a warning for that. But sometimes if you're wrestling with the car to keep it inside the track limits, it can fire back across to the inside.
Well, that was a big hit. We understand Paul KIEBLER is the car that went off track. That's the car returning to the paddock area with some significant front end damage. So while we're not exactly sure what happened, the end result tells a great deal of the story.
Yeah, sometimes it'll kind of ride high up on top of the curbing. You get a little, you overcorrect and suddenly it'll fire you back to the inside. I'm speculating here, but that could have been what happened there. Unfortunate for him, of course, the damage and a lot of debris on the racetrack. These drivers have got to be careful they don't cut down one of these tires.
But a tough break for Paul KIEBLER and the Rentec Motorsports team. Paul joining the championship in the last round at VIR, scored a point on his debut, had a DNF in race 2 in Virginia, and it's looking like another one, unfortunately, here today, just past the halfway mark. And look at all of that debris. The SRO safety crew quick to get out there. They'll do their best to clean the track and get it back in a situation that is safe enough to race. That is always risky, right? When you're driving through that debris field for the first time, to pick your way through and not pick up debris that could potentially cause a puncture.
For sure. I mean, I think the corner workers there are almost indicating the drivers go outside the curbing and stay well clear of it while they can get a nice cleanup done. But it's going to eat some time off the clock. See Daskalos there with the damaged Audi. It does look like that piece is gone away. And good news for PJ Hyatt there, sitting in the 5th position on debut this weekend, Ryan.
It is. It's one of the great stories. New team to the series, Hardpoint, which we've seen race elsewhere in North American GT3 racing. The safety crew there retrieving that headlight we had talked about earlier from Jason Daskalos. But this program, Calvin, came together very quickly for PJ Hyatt. They'll also be racing in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Gunnar Jeanette will be his co-driver for that. Unfortunately, no luck yesterday with some mechanical issues, and so PJ's doing a lot of drinking out of a fire hose at the moment.
And they've done a wonderful job, both he and Gunnar. Gunnar has a lot more experience, of course, and is coaching PJ High as he gets used to this form of racing. But Gunnar was on the phone to ROBB Ferriel, who owns Hardpoint Racing, about buying some spares package from him, and suddenly they got discussion about this racing weekend. This was just 10 days ago, and they put the deal together at the last second, got the car out here. The car was only in their shop last weekend, so they went through the car, got it ready to go, and suddenly they had some really weird issue they couldn't get together with yesterday. Ultimately had to change the engine last night, so didn't see any action in practice yesterday. Went out this morning, both drivers put in a qualifying run, and for PJ Hyatt, who have never seen this racetrack before, not driven this car on this racetrack before, to be running the sort of pace we're seeing here today is really a great testimony to his abilities, I think.
Yeah, really remarkable. Gunnar Jeanette was effusive in his praise of PJ Hyatt, so excited to see what they can do over the course of the weekend and hope to see them more as the season progresses. Meanwhile, under safety car conditions, Jason Harward runs in second, and Amanda has more on his story.
Well, guys, while we have a few minutes, thought we'd catch up with Ty Isaac on a couple of stories coming out of Zalus, but start with Jason Harwood. He is currently in that second position. Last year here, he had a second place finish and a third place finish. I don't want to assume for Jason, but is he someone that enjoys restarts?
He does like restarts. I think he really likes this track a lot. It's a really one to drive. I mean, it's got a lot of character, a lot of neat features to it. He is a little confident in it. We've been really working hard on the car over the last few weeks, trying to get the car faster. And I think he's happy with it so far. And we're typically, you know, we set up our cars to be a little faster towards the end of the race. So I think we'll see what happens here in the next 20 minutes.
We saw George was a little off pace. We did confirm that George was preserving his tires for the rest of the race. When Jason senses that, is that something that motivates him?
Yeah, he likes to chase a rabbit. He puts his head down and he's really good at chasing rabbits. It's fun to watch.
I also want to talk about Jeff Burton. He won here last year, comes back in here. It's been kind of a bit of a difficult year for him in your role of keeping this driver motivated. What conversations do you have with your drivers?
Just trying to keep them calm before they get in the car. I mean, we had that event last at Virginia with Jason. It was not an ideal situation for me to put him in the car. But Jeff's got a really calm head. He's really good at compartmentalizing and keeping his eyes up and moving forward from mistakes or, you know, learning things as we go through the weekend.
And last question, just for my knowledge, where did you get those sunglasses?
Where do you think? You want them?
Good luck today.
One of the great characters in the paddock, Ty Isaac, a racer in his own right, primarily on ice in speed skating competition, although he's done a little behind the wheel. And as we learned yesterday, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He was helping to rebuild a transmission for that team yesterday.
Yeah, he's all in. I really like him. I like his passion. I like his background. And I think it's a great young team that are really going to go places. They've certainly made tremendous progress since we've seen them in our championship, Ryan. And got some good drivers who are running fast. Good co-drivers as well on board there with Madison Snow, Corey Lewis, of course. So got some good tutelage for the amateur drivers in the lineups for the combined series events that we see with Fanatec GT. So it's a good group. I mean, they're doing great things, and Jeff had that moment this morning in Fanatec GT qualifying, but he's bounced back and putting in a solid run here, running in P3 still.
And back to Harward, you heard Ty allude to the fact he likes to chase rabbits. Some drivers like to have that target out in front to go and catch, and that brings the best out of them.
It certainly can. I mean, and you can learn too. I mean, you may have been missing a few tenths, and then you suddenly see, albeit a different car, Mercedes versus a Lamborghini in front of you doing something a little bit different, and suddenly you look at your lap times and you picked it up. And he's also going to have the benefit of the draft here with being a little bit closer to George here on the restart. So we'll wait and see. Maybe Howard can break through and grab another win here.
Moving down the order to GT4, it's been a very good but quiet run out of Ross CHOUEST, second in class, and this should not come as a surprise. This was a great weekend for him last year with a third and a second, including fastest race lap in the second race at Watkins Glen for Ross going back to a season ago. And this is the racetrack where this new team debuted. They had run under a different banner earlier in the season, had some disappointment and frustration, some bad luck, quite frankly, and Ross decided, along with his co-driver and mentor in racing, Aaron Povoledo, to start his own program, and that's what they've done. and came out guns blazing. What they did on debut here opened a lot of eyes.
It really did, and I think this year in GT America anyway, he's probably a little frustrated. He hasn't yet seen the podium, 3 times top 4, but yet to have a podium run here. But today looking really strong, but he's got a little gaggle of cars that have a lot of pace right behind him. But it seemed like Lucas and CHOUEST just had a little bit in hand over that chasing pack. We'll see how it plays out once we get back to green flag running.
All this time behind the safety car, that has to help from a tire preservation perspective. Is this going to be full board at the end?
Absolutely. There's going to be no tire management at this point forward. So we've eaten up a lot of the clock. It's only a 40-minute sprint race, but obviously they adjust tire pressures accordingly for a relatively short race. So the key is now preparing those tires, trying to, as a hot day, hot track temperatures, so not so much temperature, but just cleaning them off. Essentially get all of these marbles that kind of congregate around the racing surface here. So imagine your kids sort of like erasing something on their drawing pad, those little shavings. Same thing happens with the tires. They get shaved off during the course of the racing, suddenly sit around the racetrack, and when you're running at low speed like these, it's like rolling a big snowball. They suddenly just pick those up with the hot, sticky tires. And when you go back to green flag racing, if you haven't cleaned those off, it's like being on ice. So right now it's going to be all about cleaning those tires.
Lights are off on the safety car. The GT4 field is backing up to have a little split between themselves and the SRO 3 field. George KURTZ, the points leader, out in front. Jason Harward, who scored his first win of his career earlier this season in race 2 at Sonoma. He was right there on his tail when the full course yellow came out, and not far behind, you've got Jeff Burton and Jason Daskalos ready and waiting should something happen between these top 2. Then in GT4, Seth Lucas, can the young man withstand the pressure? He's never been in this position before. Brand new to this series, certainly wasn't running at the point to this stage in the season in probably GT4 America, but he will lead the field to the restart in GT4 with some veterans, Ross CHOUEST, Adam Adelson, Elias Sabo, and Jason Bell right behind. Just 11.5 minutes to go. George KURTZ starts to step on that loud pedal. He accelerates away, but Jason Harward stays with him. It's pretty darn close coming to the green flag.
He went a little bit later this time, but he controlled it nicely. So George KURTZ maintains the lead with the GT3 machines. Here comes that massive GT4 field to green as well.
A couple of cars under review for passing under full course yellow. Coleman and Whalen, the 2 that are being looked at by race control. 11 minutes to go. Great restart from Lucas. Ross CHOUEST right behind, and Adam Adelson running 3rd in the Porsche.
And Radicic there up to P6, so we haven't got note yet whether he's going to get any penalty for that contact with Uretsky, but he continues to hustle, trying to get on the podium.
Harward is right there. This is as close as he has been for the bulk of the race. Burton not going anywhere either, and Daskalos keeping a close eye out of his windshield too to see if he can make any inroads. In fact, took a peek there to the inside of Burton, but not close enough. Now he swings wide.
Yeah, and again, we're worrying about that downforce effect of that Audi being damaged, but he's on the attack now. He may think this is my only opportunity. Get the track position. He dives to the inside. Jeff takes the line away from him, takes the air off the nose of the Audi. They're side by side coming through turn 7.
Daskalos carving that corner. He's right there on the rear wing of the Lamborghini.
Watch for the big move here. Burton showcasing the experience there, not unraveling, keeping it together.
Oh, Daskalos very aggressive. He gets to the inside. Did he slow it down enough? Yes, he did. This is the corner where Burton had his crash in Fanatec GT qualifying earlier this morning. He backs out of it. Maybe that's the preservation we talked about, knowing he needs this car for 2 series this weekend. Also, he's headed to the pit lane.
He's heading for the pits. No, he's not. He stayed out there. That was bizarre. He really slowed down. Suddenly they're approaching the final corner, turn 11. I thought he was heading for pit lane as well, Ryan, but he continues. But a great opportunistic move there by Jason Daskalos. It's definitely an on move, let's call it that way. When you head up into turn 9, you kind of swing out wide to set up for that corner, opens up that inside lane, and Daskalos filled it.
Now with that move, Jason now in position for his 5th podium of the season, a pair of wins, as well as a 2nd and a 3rd. He runs 3rd right now. Back to the GT4 battle. Great restart from Seth Lucas. CHOUEST took a run at him and now has dropped off a little bit. Adelson appears to be the cork in the bottle, holding Sabo and Bell up just a tad.
Yeah, they're all very evenly matched, that 3, 4, 5, 6 group in terms of their lap times. See how this one plays out. Adelson has got the confidence going. He's had a great season so far. Can he keep it together and maintain that podium spot? Looks like the top two are back to what they were doing before this break for the full course yellow. Lucas looking very strong here today aboard that Toyota Supra for Hattori Racing.
Really tremendous job from Seth Lucas, who is 8 minutes and change away from his first win in his first race in GT America, powered by AWS. But the New Orleans native, Ross CHOUEST, has other ideas. He's still very much in contention. Here is Adelson holding the final podium spot with Sabo and Bell 4th and 5th.
Sabo's looking really strong. He's really pushing. I see him get a little bit wide on occasion, just trying to find the limits of that Aston Martin that he's got underneath him. Pokes his nose out there a little bit to try and rattle Adelson. Jason Bell just sitting back there, probing, watching. As the championship lead coming in, and Uretzky with that turnaround has got a lot of work to do. He's now way back in the pack, 15th in class, not going to score points.
Not as they run for Bell. He's got a streak of 3 consecutive podiums that he would love to extend, but he doesn't have much time to make up a few more places. He would need to do that to keep that streak alive.
Sabo slows. He's heading pit lane. Big temperatures here this afternoon in the 90s. Is that starting to have an effect on some of these race cars?
Penalty to Sabo. Stop and hold plus a minute for incident responsibility. That is heartbreaking for the Flying Lizard Motorsports driver.
I saw one for incident responsibility on the 22 flash up there as well for Radisic.
Meanwhile, the battle is on here. Gray Newell and Jose De Silva fighting over 7th and 8th. Aston Martin versus Toyota Supra.
I think where Sabo may have been involved.
Oh, De Silva sliding wide through the inner loop. He was really aggressive, carried a ton of speed on corner entry.
That was big commitment. He's a little bit wide here as well. He needs to just smooth things out a little bit, settle back in again, start hitting his marks like George KURTZ is doing up front here. He's got that little gap over Harwood. That's nice. Inching up to about 2 seconds, I feel. It was 1.3 across the lines. The 67 is definitely out of whack here a little bit. He's kind of getting out in the grey, man. Got some marbles on his tires and just making little mistakes here. Now he's got a little bit high-sided on this curb.
Let's take a look at what happened. Jose De Silva
drops the right sides. That was nothing to do with dirty tires, just dropped the right sides as he's turning in.
Native of Puerto Rico. He's done partial touring car seasons in the past. And a podium in race 1 at Sonoma. Able to get up off that curb. That's good news. Can he get it back on the racing surface? Looks like he's going to ultimately, and that should keep us clean and green with just over 5 minutes to go. George KURTZ continues to lead over Jason Harwood, but it's very close, just 1 second between the two.
Harwood is really flying through their inner loop there. Looks like his car is really working well, and you can see KURTZ is still right there. Any slip by KURTZ is going to give him an opportunity. Doesn't look like they're going to run into a ton of traffic with this reset so late in the race, but George has got to hit his marks. A little bit wide there. Key is with that uphill. You can run. Oh, big moment by Harwood. He's going to lose it.
Spins from 2nd place. Jason Harwood goes around. You see the dust kicked up. Daskalos comes through. That's a spot for him. So he's now up to 2nd despite all of the damage. That'll bring Burton up into podium contention. And now we wait to see if Harwood can get that car restarted and pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I saw through the inner loop. He was absolutely pushing the limits here. We see George was a little bit wide, and then Harwood is super wide. He has to lift off the gas. You can see his understeering wide there. That gives him a moment and just loses the back end. As Daskalos escapes and gets through the dirt in the air there to assume 2nd position now. That's great for him in the championship.
Yeah, on a day it really did not look like it was going to go his way based on qualifying. To salvage a 2nd would be big for Daskalos. Harwood was able to get going again, as we see here. He was pushing hard, though. He had just set his fastest race lap the prior lap, and he was doing that in traffic, in dirty air. So, yeah, you know he was pushing hard.
He was really pushing. I thought George was a little bit wide there, going through the toe of the boot, turn 7, but I think Jason just chased the throttle a little bit too hard. He looked like he was way high coming off the corner. Maybe had to adjust the throttle a little bit, and that pushes the weight to the nose and spun it around.
So the fight for the overall lead has broken off. Now to the GT4 field we go with Seth Lucas in that Motul-sponsored Toyota Supra leading the way at last check. A 1.3 second lead over Ross CHOUEST. Adelson continues to hold down third. More on the Ohio native, Seth Lucas with Amanda.
Well, Ryan, we could be 3 minutes away from a win in his debut race. I was talking to team manager Chris Lucas about their decision to join in GT America, and simply it was just to get more seat time for Seth. He's been listening to Seth on the radio here today and said that he's calm, collected, trying to manage his nerves, and the team was really complimentary of Seth's performance today, especially on these restarts. His co-driver in GT4 is on top of race control, helping him around this track. Matt Plum and the team are hoping to see a win here for Seth Lucas.
Yeah, Matt and Seth, that was the duo as the season began in Pirelli GT4 America. Now, though, the focus solely on this program for the duration of the season. And this is a championship caliber team. Looks like Harward's off the pace here because now the GT4 field is coming through, and now Daskalo's to the pits.
Wow, they're dropping like flies here at the moment.
Race has had a little bit of everything. And for Daskalos...
Well, that's a stop and hold for incident responsibility as well. So maybe he was involved in that incident in the opening lap, turn 1, and they've now assessed him the responsibility.
Well, with that, George KURTZ now has a commanding lead over Jeff Burton, who runs in second. For Jeff,
I think George or Jeff have been in trouble, have they? So they should be okay in terms of penalties coming their way.
Be a second runner-up finish on the season for Jeff if he were to hold on and get this done. Now I wonder, with Harward's issues, are they manageable enough that he can keep going and get back around Daskalos for that spot, whatever the issue might be?
Yeah, so 1 minute hold as well as that drive for the 27, so it gives him that opportunity, but the car's going to need to be healthy for that. Should be seeing white flag this time by, I think, for George KURTZ, our overall leader.
Well, for George, we talk so much about the development we see in this championship, especially for the AM drivers and some of the Pro-Am lineups in Fanatec GT or in Pirelli GT4 America. George KURTZ, it took him a couple of years and then it clicked in GT4 and he won his championship a few years back. Similar story on the GT3 side where they've been knocking on the door for the past few seasons, but this season things are clicking. They're getting the success in Fanatec GT. He's the points leader here in GT America powered by AWS, and he is 1 lap away from a 3rd consecutive win and 4th on the season.
Well, you can just see it in his personality. He's just a lot more confident this year, making the move to Riley Motorsports. He and Colin Brown, when they run together in Fanatec GT, they're finding the sweet spot with the setups. The car's more consistent, and I think that's what you need for someone with George's experience. You need to know every time I get in the car, it's going to feel the same way, not be searching so much with the setup that it's a different animal to drive. And when you give George that confidence, you can see he's not afraid to win. He loves being out front. He's seen victory lane many times throughout the course of his career. Now we see Daskalos back on track, just ahead of our overall leaders who just stayed on the lead lap, it looks like.
Now George KURTZ will be making a trip to Belgium in just a few days' time to take part once again in the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa. He's done that the last several years, and I know he's really looking forward to that trip. Coming by to take the white flag in GT4 is Seth Lucas. 1 lap to go for the Ettore Motorsports driver.
With Sabo out of the way, it's now allowed Bell to close up on Adelson for that final podium spot. So that could be a little shootout here in the final lap of this race for the podium run in GT4.
But back to the overall leader, George KURTZ. Just a few corners yet to negotiate. That was the exit of the boot section. Turn number 9 here through the high speed. Turn number 10. And George KURTZ and the Riley Motorsports crew continue to be on fine form. From pole position, it's a flag-to-flag victory, the third in a row for George KURTZ. He wins race 1 at Watkins Glen.
Great performance. Certainly had some pressure there from Harwood, but brings it home, delivers, extends his championship lead. Big day for George KURTZ.
Jeff Burton poised to come home second, and PJ Hyatt on debut looks like he is set to stand on the podium if he can keep it clean for one final lap. Back to GT4, Hattori Motorsports. This is a championship caliber team. They won the 2018 NASCAR Camping World Truck Series Championship with Brett Moffitt, but this is their first season in sports car racing, and this young man in his first start as a solo driver here in GT America, powered by AWS, appears poised to claim victory.
A lot of talent in that team and in the engineering department, and on that pit box right now, we're waiting to see their driver bring it home.
Little lap traffic to clear. That's the last little challenge for Seth Lucas, the teenager from Ohio, coming through turn 10. Just one corner left to go to score the first ever win in sports car racing for Hattori Motorsports. Seth Lucas out of the final corner, and to the checkered flag, he is a race winner in GT America, powered by AWS.
Awesome job. That was great. And it looks like Bell may have got around Adelson on that final lap there. Jason Bell, championship leader. Boy, what a run for him. 12th on the grid all the way up to a podium.
Those are the kind of performances that win you championships, and he is the reigning champion. He knows how to get the job done in an extremely tight class within GT America, and that is a great result. And how about it for Ross CHOUEST? 3 starts at Watkins Glen with this team and 3 podiums.
Yeah, he loves it here and delivers once again. Really solid result for that whole group. George doing what his Formula One supported Mercedes boys do after a finish, running around off the road, trying to get a little bit of pickup on those tires, make sure you are well above that minimum ride height that you have to pass in post-race tech.
And the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race to the CrowdStrike car, George KURTZ. It is his 3rd consecutive win. 2 of those 3, he has had the fastest race lap, and he has had the pole in all 3 of them. Did have a win from pole in round 2 of the season on the streets of St. Petersburg as well. So win number 4 for the New Jersey native. Not too terribly far from home. Gets the job done at Watkins Glen. Well, it was a race that had its fair share of interruptions, it must be said, and especially within the SRO3 class. A remarkable amount of attrition. But you look at those drivers that kept a cool head. George KURTZ, Jeff Burton come to mind. You know, those are 2 drivers with a lot of experience, which maybe makes it all the more impressive what Seth Lucas did with relatively little experience to draw from. Kept it nice and smooth, inherited the pole after the penalty to Radicic, and never looked back.
Yes, treading new ground, right? So to pull that one off is always significant. George KURTZ, thumbs up to everyone. Solid run there. Basically, the podium runners, they kept their nose clean, and some other drivers and teams who potentially could have been on the podium got drawn with those penalties and pulled down pit lane.
We were not so far away from a GT4 car on the overall podium. Just 24 seconds, basically, between where Hyatt finished and Seth Lucas as the winner in GT4. Brings it home 4th overall, and with the top spot in the GT4 class. George KURTZ, victorious once again, and we should be hearing from him here shortly. In fact, let's hear from him now, Amanda.
Well, George, from the pole position to the checkered flag, you get your 4th win on the season. We saw Jason trying to catch you there some, and then unfortunately he got lost there at the end. But was there any moment of this race that you felt vulnerable?
No, it was just obviously CrowdStrike and Riley gave us a great car, so hats off to them all weekend. And it was just, you know, a weird race because of the caution. So I'd have a gap, then a caution, and have a gap. So I think it was really just about keeping my head down and hitting my marks and executing.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Well-judged race, but he won't have long to celebrate because he's got racing duties in Fanatec GT coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon. alongside Colin Brown, where they had a front row start in Pro-Am in each of the 2 races based on qualifying this morning. So that Riley team, they've got it figured out. George KURTZ victorious, and your overall podium, KURTZ, Burton, and Hyatt. Impressive debut from him. GT4 podium, Lucas, CHOUEST, and Bell.
Yes, a tight schedule here this afternoon. You said it right. George KURTZ, not much of a chance to have a breather, but get ready for some action. He'll be starting that Fanatec GT race this afternoon as the AM driver in their lineup.
That's set to go green an hour from now, to give you some idea of how little time he's going to have to recover. Look a little further down the order. Daskalos has to be wondering what might have been, has that penalty late, and that was costly. Back to Amanda.
Well, let the records book show in his debut race, Seth Lucas became a winner here in GT America. And I'm sure you saw your team celebrating at that wall. What was going through your mind when you saw that checkered flag?
Oh, it was insane. Everybody's work this weekend just all came to one. Everybody just worked so hard for this. Everybody deserves it. So it's a pretty clean race, but kept it together for the final.
Keeping it together for the final. I was talking to your team, and he was saying how cool you were staying. What was the point of that?
Just trying to stay calm so we don't do anything stupid, so could stay in first, keep the position. So
Nice job, Seth.
thank you.
Gotta love a first-time winner. I think it's all still soaking in, but that's a young man with a lot of promise. Highlights from race 1 of the weekend. George KURTZ from pole led them away, and then there was chaos behind.
Yeah, there was. Daskalos had a good start, didn't have anywhere to go with it. Unfortunately, there was contact down in turn 1, and we lost Weatherall in that action immediately.
Marco Schultes also sustained a great deal of damage. He would go no further than the inner loop on that first lap. This was the initial start in GT4. Gray Newell had a great qualifying effort, but it goes by the wayside. Missing the inner loop, has to give up all those spots going through the cutout.
Yeah, he saw Sabo there to the inside, couldn't quite get it turned in, and with relatively cold tyres, had to take the escape route there. Marko Radicic, unfortunately, after a brilliant drive from the back of the pack, touches Uretsky and gets a drive through for that one.
Similar story here. Daskalos diving up the inside of Burton, gets the job done. But neither, well, for Daskalos at least, it was not going to be a happy ending here for Harward. A big spin, kept it off the wall, but didn't get the finish he was hoping for. But for George KURTZ, it was victory number 4 of the season, his 3rd in a row, starting to consolidate his championship lead. Seth Lucas picks up his first win, and the first win for Shiggy Hattori's new effort in sports car racing. A tremendous effort for them. What a great way to start the weekend of racing here in the Finger Lakes region of Watkins Glen. We hope that you join us for race 2 of the weekend tomorrow. For Amanda and Cal, I'm Ryan. So long for now.